Okay, so last video we did Arch Linux, so now I think we're going to try Void and do just a minimal install of Void and see how that does. I think I've already downloaded the ISO, so we're going to go ahead and start the install. Oh, hey, there's my wife. Good night, wife. Alright, so I'm going to get the ISO going here. Let's browse into our downloads. Should be right there. I'm going to do the same thing I did with, wow, it defaults to a low amount of RAM. We'll do the same thing where we're going to do, let's see, 4 gig. And then we will do 4 cores. Go ahead and give this dude 50 gig, which we obviously I'm not going to use all that, but we'll give it a shot. And we'll go next, Void Linux. I'm going to do the same thing and see if this will work in UEFI. I've had problems before where that didn't work, but we're going to try. Alright, let me move this over here. So we have Void Linux. They usually have the latest LTS kernel, but you can install different kernels. They have, 6.11, 6.12 in the repos, but they default to the stable kernel. So once you're in here, now if I am curious if, let's go ahead and do root. And you'll type in Void Linux. That'll get you logged into the install. It's just using a very basic bash. Does this have set font by chance? No. I'll have to figure out how to do that some other time. So unfortunately, it's going to be lower font until I can remember how to set that font higher, because I actually don't recall. But that's actually not too big a deal, because what we're going to do is do the Void installer. And this is very similar to what it was with Debian. It is a Ncurses style installer. Very quick install. You just got to select a few things. Here our key map. I'm going to use the US and then network. DHCP is working. Source, I'm going to do everything over the network so we get the latest packages. The mirror, I'm going to go to... The worldwide one actually works pretty good, but I'm actually going to go to North America and then Chicago. That one's pretty fast for me. Host name, we're going to do void vert for the host name. Our locale, you got to search through here to find your locale. I go ahead and do my United States. Time zone, we're going to do America and Chicago. That is the time zone I'm in. I actually live in Kentucky, but my time zone is Central Time. Root password. And then we'll set up our primary account. And then set a password for that. Here's where you want to set up any groups you want to be in. There's probably some you're going to want, like I'll put on network. I want the wheel. We got audio, video. I usually go ahead and add input. That should be all we need. Bootloader. We are going to go to dev VDA. And this is where we're going to partition. So I'm going to go through, it'll pop up CF disk. And again, I'm using EFI, so I'm going to see if it'll work. So we'll do what we did last time. We'll do a 1 gig for our EFI partition. I'm going to do like a 2 gig for a swap partition. And then the rest for the standard partition. And then we got to set up the file system. So this VDA1, which is our EFI, you want to set that to VFAT. And then you want to mount it under boot EFI. And go ahead and create the new file system. This is going to be our VDA2 is going to be our swap. So we're going to go ahead and add the swap, create that. And then VDA3 is going to be our, I'm going to use ext4. This will be just our root partition. We'll create a new one, and then you'll go done. And this is the cool part. You're pretty much done at that point. You hit install. It'll give you a warning saying it's going to kill everything. You hit go, and you're off to the races. And this generally doesn't take very long at all to go ahead and get everything popped in. If you have a decent mirror setup, that's the cool thing about Void. It pops in. And see, it is pulling in. It's pulling in the 6.12 kernel, isn't it? That's right. I guess 6.12 is the latest LTS. That's right. I forgot about that. So it actually is going to pull in the 6.12 kernel as their LTS. It automatically does the firmwares and all that, so you don't have to worry too much about getting updated firmwares. Yeah, it is going to use the 6.12, so that's pretty cool. Alright, and that part's done. So it will do all the post-install stuff and get that set up and configured. And there'll be a few things we'll probably want to do post-install here, if I can remember what they are. And at that point it's done and it should reboot. And so we'll see if UEFI worked, and it did. Okay, cool. So we're good on that. And then you see how quick that boots in. That incredibly fast. And this is run it because Void Linux is a non-systemd distribution, and it uses run it as the init system, and it is blazingly fast. So now we are logged in. Now a couple things I want to do. I will go ahead and do make sure our network's working and we have everything up to date, which we should. And then I want to enable the extra repositories. The non-free stuff, in case you need some proprietary packages. And then we will do the multi-lib repo, in case you're wanting to do anything that needs 32-bit libraries, and then we'll do the multi-lib non-free as well. That's good for things like Steam and such like that that you may want. And then after you do that, you want to go ahead and sync those repositories so they're enabled and ready to use. And so at this point, we can install a few things. I'll do git, I'll do neovim, and I will do, I think it's called fish shell in Void. Yeah, they name things a bit differently than some other distributions, so, and sometimes they even have like, things will be capitalized, so you'll have to watch that. They have some interesting naming conventions. That took me a while to figure out what packages I needed when I first started using Void a few years ago. People have complained about the package manager being slow, but it doesn't seem to be too bad. Let's see, I don't know if this is actually in here. Yeah, I guess it is. Okay, so we'll exit. Alright, yeah. And that will, what I did there was just to get rid of that welcome message every time Fish logs in. So we don't have to worry about that. Now, we don't have much in the way of, well, there's really nothing installed, but you're going to want some, let's see if I can figure it out here. I had it somewhere, void, trying to find some of my notes here. Now, there's some services you're going to want installed and running usually to get things working. I don't know if they already have dbus. Let's see what services are available. Looks like we do not. We got DHCP, SSH. Okay, so let's go ahead and install dbus. And then I want to enable dbus, so in run it, you basically just create a link to the service that you want. Create that link into var service, and that will get that service up and enabled. What else do we want? To make things a bit easier, you're probably going to want eLogInD. That is actually part. It's logInD that's been stripped out of systemd so that you can use it without having systemd. It's good for using certain window managers and things like that. It makes setting things up a lot easier. So, let's see. We'll get that installed, and then I want to go ahead and enable that. So we'll do the same thing. LNS. We'll do what is that? etc sv, and then it should be under eLogInD, and we'll copy that over to, or not copy, but create a link over there. Oh, you got a sudo to do that. And that should be eLogInD. Another thing I like to install is Crony to get my crons going. So let's, I'm doing apt again, I'm used to Debian. I guess I could just make aliases. But anyway, so let's go ahead and install Crony. And then we'll enable Crony. Into obviously var services, and I forgot to do sudo again. Alright, so that enables Crony. Now the reason I like to do that is because I want to set up FS trim. So usually what I'll do is set that up under a cron for weekly, and I will just create a file under cron wiki called fs trim, make that a bash script, and then do fs trim a. That way that will trim all of my partitions that are mounted, and then I want to make that an executable. So we'll do, so you can see it a little better. We'll do oops, I don't know why I did that. No, I don't want to search. Okay, we'll do sudo change mod u plus x2 etc cron weekly fs trim, and that way that will run weekly to get my trim running. To do network time, I like to enable that as well, so we'll do sudo xbps install, and we will do what is that? I like Crony. I can't remember if it's Crony D is the name, or is it just Crony? It's just Crony. So we'll install Crony and do the same thing. Well, let me clear that out. So we'll go ahead and enable Crony, and that will get our network time going. You can do cups the same way. That will install cups for network printing. I usually install for certain printers I need the IPP USB, so enable that as well, and for network printers to be able to for network printers to be discoverable. It makes it easier just to go ahead and install Avahi. Oh, it's already installed. Okay, that works. All right, so we need to enable all those services. So let's do the same thing. We'll do sudo lns etc sv cups into var and service. That will enable cups. I'll do the same thing with the IPP USB. And I'll also do the same thing with Avahi. So let's do that sv Avahi daemon into var service. And I keep forgetting sudo. And that should enable most of the services that we're going to need. Obviously, there's lots of packages you're going to want. You know, like I like to install my Linux headers. I don't think they're installed. I usually go ahead and do that in case I need them. And I will install stuff like base devil and well, let's do one at a time. Do base devil. That's in case I need to compile things, packages that may not be. Void doesn't have the largest available packages, but you can still get a lot of stuff on Flatpak app images. They work pretty well. Xmirror is a good one. That will allow you to easily change your mirrors. If you get a slow mirror or something's not working right, you can just use Xmirror, and that'll pull in a better mirror for you. At that point, you got most things you need to get started building the system how you want. This is very minimal, so let's go ahead and reboot and make sure everything worked. Again, the cool thing about Void is it boots and reboots extremely fast using Runit. Look at that. I mean, that's crazy fast. It's making me tempted to go back to it. I'm using Arch on my one system and Bazite on my other, but I am missing Void. I used it for several years. Just the speed of this sucker is crazy. At that point, yeah, they have some documentation that's not too bad on their website where you can look into. Well, let's look over that real quick. If I can get out of here. Their website has lots of good documentation. You can go here and you can look at things you need to set up. Again, like I said, what I did with cron. They have different ways you can do cron if you want to. Solid state drives. Again, that's kind of what I did to set up to make sure I did fstrim. And there's a few other ways, again, you can do that. Things if you're wanting pipe wire or pulse audio, either of those set up. So you really want to, once you get your system up and running, you want to go through here and kind of figure out how you're wanting to set your system up. They've got things, you know, how to clear out your kernel, because the thing about with Void Linux, they don't delete your old kernels. So if you have a pretty small boot partition that holds all your kernels, it can get filled up pretty quickly. So you want to go through here and learn how to get rid of your old kernels and clean that up. Again, they have GNOME and they have KDE in their repositories. They have like Mate and XFCE and all that, Cinnamon, those sort of things. All fairly easy to set up. Wayland works well. Usually with Wayland, I have to set up, you know, the dbus, run it manually. and you may have to run like Pipewire manually and everything to get those things working in things like Sway or Hyperland. Is Hyperland in their repos? I don't think it is. No, it isn't, but they do have Sway. Yeah, they have Sway, the latest Sway. They have, I think they have LabWC. Yeah, they've got that. I'm curious, do they have the latest XF? Yeah, looks like they're using the 420 on XFCE, so they got the latest XFCE. How do you spell cinnamon? I don't even remember. They're using 6.4. I don't know what the latest cinnamon is, but 6.4 seems pretty current. 46 on GNOME, which I think GNOME is on 47 now. But the thing with Void, even though it is a rolling release, they sort of stick more towards stable. So they may not roll as fast as Arch Linux and those sort of things. It's a bit more stable. But they have constant updates on that system. So, like with here, like I said, I believe it's using, yeah, it's using the 612. And it has fast fetch. So, there you go. That's super fast, easy way to get Void set up with a few services you're going to need. Again, I recommend going through the documentation. Kind of teaches you how to deal with run it, setting up those services that you may need, setting up any desktop environments or window managers you may want. I've used it with both Xorg and Wayland and had very few issues. Flatpaks work great. Gaming works good on it. You just may need to do a little research on how to set those things up properly and how to get them working correctly, because it is a lot different than using a System D distro. But the speed and responsiveness and stability of Void is really great. It's a top-notch distro, and I completely recommend it 100%. Give it a try, test it out, play with it. I think you'll like it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the video. Do like and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. I may do some more quick and dirty installs. Maybe how to do a manual install of Ubuntu where you can kind of install it not using the GUI and not using the server, but actually going in a manual sort of Arch way of installing, the bootstrap way of installing Ubuntu is kind of fun. So I may do that video. Anyway, thanks for watching.